judges for being here today. Shelley Lukasiewicz from CPA Saskatchewan, Kate Lockhart from MCO, Nick Kochar from Refresh, Alana Cook from the Government of Saskatchewan, Kim McConnell from AdFarm, Michael Holfort from Farm Credit Canada, Tiffany Stevenson from the Ministry of Agriculture, and Mohammed Turshizi from the Department of Bioresource Policy, Business and Economics, and the College of Agriculture and Bioresources. The competitors today will have a maximum of 20 minutes to present. Immediately following the presentation, the judges will have a total of 5 minutes to ask the presenters their desired questions. The volunteer timekeeper will show time cards at various intervals to indicate the remaining time and will stop any speaker who exceeds the maximum time limit. No questions, comments, cell phones, or picture taking will be permitted from the audience at any given time. The audience will only be permitted to applaud following the question and answer period. The audience is also banned from any material that bears the name or symbol of a competing university. And lastly, we ask that the audience exit the room immediately following the question and answer period. You may begin whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for being with us today. My name is Sarah, and this is my colleague Riley, and we are representing RS Consulting. And we're very excited to be here with you today, looking at the issues presented that you're facing right now. While we were going through and thinking of ideas, there were so many times that we stopped and were kind of like, oh, like just right, that lack of understanding, that misconception that people are facing. We face that same misconception, so we can absolutely see why you would want to address that and see why you'd want to move forward with that. And that's what we're here to help you address today. I'm going to begin by walking you through an agenda for today's presentation. We'll start with an issue identification followed by an analysis. We'll look at 3 different recommendations, provide you with our recommendation, and walk you through a strategic implementation. We'll follow that with a timeline, a budget, a couple of contingency points to consider, and ultimately end off with our keys to success. So, as promised, looking at our primary issue, what you're really facing is the misconceptions about the animal agricultural industry and the implications that's been having and how that's been affecting and how imports have been increasing because consumers have a misconception about the hormones in beef. And the secondary issue is educating the population on the growing agricultural industry. Now, I'd like to take this time just to identify that we saw these as separate issues, and while they're related, they are separate issues. And we'll be focusing primarily on that primary issue. Our alternatives will be dealing with that, but we will touch on the secondary issue and provide you some ideas moving forward with how you will address that as well. With that, I'm going to pass it off to Riley to talk to you about the target market.
Thank you, Sarah. So let me paint you a picture of exactly who we're trying to get this message to. Because before I get into that, we have to understand that this is a message that we're sending to these people. And this makes up the whole age range of 18 to 30. And where we want to focus right now is the people that live in the Saskatchewan area. But this is not limited to any outskirting areas leaking into Alberta and to Manitoba. We want to understand that this target market is very educated, so they're looking to seek out information to better understand the world. They're a little bit younger, so they're highly influential. Currently, I sit in this age range, and I'm still trying to figure out exactly how the world works. So when I was presented with this case, it was news to me. And sitting in this age bracket, I'm also establishing this independence, slowly moving away from relying on the parents, getting into my own house, and eventually building a family and finding a job. And because I'm in this age bracket, I can understand that there is technology, and I've grown up with it, and I am actually dependent on it. And I can understand that up until 30, you almost don't know what a life is without technology. So to get into a few different strengths and weaknesses, some internal factors as well as some opportunities and threats, the external factors that are your business is, or that you are faced with this message. So a couple of strengths is, across Canada, we are well known for our high quality beef. It's very highly regulated, so people have very high confidence in it. You're also known as the second largest beef provider within Saskatchewan, right next to that Alberta beef. Also, a couple of weaknesses is that your market segment doesn't align with the farm and food daycare, food care model target market. So you're a little bit exactly confused how to get this message to them. Like, let's just be clear that you aren't exactly selling a product, you're trying to get this message. And so you need to segment and be sure of it. And also, you are a little bit delayed in your response to this issue arising, which actually leads into the threat that it is an established, well-established misconception of beef. I used to love A&W until today. And I apologize that you're facing this misconception today. So, and another threat is that the fast food chains are continuously growing, and they're taking on this misconception in order to promote their business. And they're also importing their beef. They're staying away from Canadian beef. So what do we want to do? We want to promote Canadian beef. One opportunity is actually the consumer confidence in the current economic well-being. So we're in a recession. We all understand that, and we're a little bit feeling a little bit uneasy moving forward. So the consumer confidence that we can capitalize on this opportunity is that people that are in the oil industry, they may stay away from there. They may not go to the oil capital of the world, or of Canada, Calgary, and go for a business degree and go right into oil. They may be more willing to try out those other industries, perhaps agriculture, if approached correctly. So I'm going to get into some alternatives. And so because this is a message that we're trying to deliver, we need to understand exactly how this message is going to be delivered. So these three alternatives are different types of messages. And then within our implementation, we'll get into exactly how this message will be delivered. So the first alternative is to implement a humor campaign. So this is an issue that is facing our economy. If it continues to grow, it may affect us. But if you approach it with a brighter side, it may resonate with them for a little bit longer. They may think of it as an issue that they can relate to. It creates a buzz because if you send a video out there, people are going to want to show it to their friends. They're going to get excited about it. They're going to laugh. A negative aspect of this is that it may not be taken seriously. And it really does need to be taken seriously because it could affect Canada as a whole. Another negative aspect is that it may create a conflict between yourself and A&W. They may feel threatened by this humor message. Our idea for a humor message would be to compare, let's say, water. And you have your video, you start off and you say, this water, it's water, it's hormone-free. There's no calories in it. But people are like, I know that. Like, it's not news to me. But then you continue and you get into your Alberta beef, or your Canadian beef, and you start to say, well, this is beef. It's just beef. It's not affecting you any more than hormone beef. So our second alternative is to do a campaign based around Canadian pride. This will resonate more with Canadians because we are a community. Canadians like to work together and think together, so when you create a message that brings everyone together, it's going to be more long-term. It's also scalable, so if you were to implement this right into Saskatchewan and you saturate it with this message, in the future you would be able to expand it to other parts of Canada. However, it is hard to measure. It's hard to measure exactly how prideful someone is in Canada, and as well as in the future, it would be hard to go out and talk to every single Canadian. So our third alternative is to an informative campaign. This is possible because it has a serious tone. It addresses the issue that is very serious. It's also credibility focused. So you have the facts you are the government, you're the Ministry of Saskatoon, you get the government involved, and you'd have that behind the strength of the message. But a negative aspect of this is that it comes across as noise. We've all seen government ads, and we've all seen them, and we've pushed them aside because it's just another thing that, it's just another message that they're trying to get across to the general public. It's not tailored to who you are as an individual. It's also a little bit less engaging because, of course, it's just facts. So to get into my decision matrix, we took into account 3 factors: the uniqueness of the message, how engaging it is, whether or not you get even your target market to read it, as well as how influential it is, whether or not they were to act on the message, go out and find a reason to be proactive, tell their friends. So with humor, it would be very unique. It would address the issue, and it would resonate in their brain, and they think of it as a cool message, something that they have to tell people. It's not quite as engaging because it's humorous. It might sit there as something that's just humor, and as well influential. It may just be entertainment to them. So on the other hand, going an informative route, it would be just like every other message that the government were to release. It's not very unique, not very engaging, and it's not very influential. So ultimately, going with a Canadian pride message, it is somewhat unique because, I mean, hockey's done it, basing it around Canadian pride. It may blend in with there, but it's addressing more of a national issue. It's very engaging and it's very influential. People act on it because their neighbor is acting on it. So ultimately, I'm going to pass it off to Sarah to go through our decision.
Thank you. So, like Riley said, our recommendation for you is going with the Canadian Pride campaign, and I'll walk you through that in just a minute. It's going to be called My Canada, My Beef. And so what is the campaign about? There are a few key points it's going to touch on. I want to walk you through those before telling you what it's going to look at. It's going to talk about Canadian pride. We all know that being Canadian is something to be proud of. We may not be the top of every list in the world, but people still love us because of who we are, because of what we exemplify, and because of what we do in the community and globally. It's going to be talking about importing beef. It's going to be drawing attention to this issue because I think many people are in the same boat as us. We just don't realize. We hear the hormone-free message, but if it's hormone-free and not from here, it draws a little more disappointment, a little more disconnect, a little more concern as to why. That doesn't make sense. And we're going to be talking about the quality of local beef. Again, drawing attention to the fact that the hormones, right, there is that comparison that 1,000 portions of beef is equal to a head of cabbage for the hormones. That's nothing. That's not going to affect a consumer. It's completely safe, and that message needs to be conveyed. And lastly, like I said, hormones aren't an issue. That's not something to be concerned about. So what media channels are most effective? The media channels we're going to be going into, there will be a developed television ad and radio. With radio, instead of just having a blurb on the radio, we want to go in and do interviews on the radio with a spokesperson to draw attention, to draw interest, and also just to have somebody that people can relate to and that they trust and that they believe in, who has that honesty connection. And social media, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And the really cool thing is that while you're focusing on Saskatchewan, somebody who's living right here in Saskatoon has a friend over in Quebec, they're going to hear about it. Or maybe a friend over on the BC coast, they're going to hear about it. All over, it connects people. And that's really what this message is about. And that's why we're pursuing Canadian Pride. It's building that connectivity, that interest, that reliance on our own country, our own products, on our own abilities. And so, what will it look like? I think maybe the only thing that might connect people more than being Canadians is being Rider fans. And if you go to any sporting event, I mean any sporting event, if you look hard enough, you will find a Rider fan, whether it's Winnipeg Jets, Edmonton Oilers, the Flames, the Canucks. There is always someone in that Green Riders hat because they love them that much. And so for a spokesperson, you'll look within this rider community, you'll find a teammate who speaks to this target market, who's proven themselves trustworthy and honest and has that connection, and you'll hire them on to be your spokesperson. And also this issue really drives home because many of the Rough Rider team is from Saskatchewan, and many of them have ties. They know farmers, they know people who this industry is directly affecting. Some of them worked on farms during the off-season. So this is who our spokesperson is going to be. So the commercial, the TV advertisement you're going to develop will begin with facts about Canadian excellence. So did you know that Canada, it can be anything from developing hockey, or how the CFL fields are larger than the NF fields. Facts that attract your target market and that are interesting. And there's so many things, how many Olympic medals we've won, so many different ways. Facts that make people proud and that relate to your target market will be the beginning, the opening. It'll be the voiceover from this player who is chosen, and then it'll move into the message. So starting with this voiceover, then it will directly appear with them, and then they begin talking about the message. They say, did you know that Canadian beef, while it has hormones, is completely safe for you, is grown right here locally, and that the imports aren't needed. And so then it'll be an invitation to join the discussion, My Canada, My Beef. So like I said, we're going to address that secondary message a little bit here. While we didn't feel that issue was directly related, we couldn't think of a campaign that would hit two birds with one stone and be as effective. We think the target market you should really focus on is the up-and-coming generation. So high school and post-secondary, while they're receiving education, while they're pursuing furtherment and advances in their career, and while they're looking at that, have advertisements that show the different aspects of the agriculture industry. Because we both know that it doesn't just go from a field to a shelf. There's production involved, there's manufacturing, there's packaging, and each of those stages have their own accounting and finance and human resources. And so we think that through advertisements, posters, through schools, and through these post-secondary institutions, as well as career fairs, you can help spread that message. So we didn't get into it as much because we really want to focus on that primary message, but this is how we would begin to address that secondary issue. So I'll pass it off to Riley to talk to you about a timeline.
Thank you, Sarah. So in the first month, we want to get this this ad up and running. We want to get the sponsorship going. We want to get this ad developed. Once you have seen it on TV, there's quite a bit of buzz about it. Then you'll see it in the newspaper. While it's on television, it's going to be on the radio, and through the radio, it's going to be there's going to be discussions happening. It's not going to be just an ad saying, this is an ad from the province of Saskatchewan. This will be a talk show. I know with local radio, a lot of people like to talk about current issues. It's just a good way of getting engagement with the radio station. So when they just say, how do you feel about the fact that you're paying more for hormone-free beef when it doesn't affect you? So this will get that buzz going on within the community. From day one, we want to get into those streams of social media, getting that information out there so that people are sharing it, getting excited about it. So to get into the budget, with the numbers that were provided, we are going to go with newspaper for a full year at $15,600. The radio discussion is going to be a little bit extra because it's a special kind of advertising. It's more personable. People connect well with radio show hosts. Also, the commercial, including the development of the commercial, as well as distribution at prime time, and as well as the $20,000 for the spokesperson. We don't know exactly how much they would expect for becoming a spokesperson, but we think that $20,000, especially for an issue that affects the community, is a fair evaluation. Also with YouTube and Facebook, that goes to the banner ads and different methods through social media. So a total of about $240,000. So that gives you a little bit of money to work with. To get into the contingency, you have a lot of room in the budget if you want to get out and do some advertising in Alberta or Manitoba. Another contingency is to always seek more feedback. Get out there and get involved, ask people about the issue. Also getting the government involved. So making this, we think that, especially with this case competition, you've got involved and you've got a lot of people coming from different cities to learn about this issue. And I know I have and other marketing teams have too. So getting this government involvement so that it can be nationwide could be another key to future success. So I'm going to pass it off to Sarah to talk about some other keys to success.
Thanks, Riley. So really, the Canadian Pride, that's not something to underestimate. We really believe that this campaign will connect people, will draw attention to the issue, and taking it from the approach as this is Canadian products that are good for you, that are safe for you, and as we enter this recession, don't be looking for more expensive products elsewhere. Look at what you have at home, look at how well you are in the community, and I think really the biggest thing is that the product speaks for itself. Canadian beef is healthy, it's good, it's homegrown, and we just need to address that issue and bring attention to it instead of, we just need to re-educate people. So with that, we'll open up the floor to any questions. Thank you.
So first of all, I just want to say I grew up in Ontario, small town. My dad is the biggest Rough Riders fan going, so I totally hear you. I noticed in your budget, you've allocated only 1% of your budget to the online social media aspect of it, and 99% of your budget to the more traditional marketing tools and tactics. Do you think that really matches with your target audience?
We did see through the information provided that about half of Canadians respond to television and radio, so we want to focus on that, and we really believe that through this message, it will take off by itself, that doing these advertisements is just the beginning of it. And based on the numbers in the case, we felt that this was an accurate representation of focusing a starting point, but we did leave that extra money because it's such a short implementation time that if you do see one medium working more or one medium, there's absolutely room to reallocate and to push more. We want to start small so that as you scale it larger, you can see what's working and you can keep pushing at that. But because we didn't want to limit it to just our target market, we feel this overlaps our target market and expands more and brings more. So that's why we allocated it that way.
You don't have enough scientific proof to remove the misconceptions. Don't you think someone like AW would take advantage of that and take more actions against this? That I can see here. You focus on pride, and in that table there's more weight given to pride than information. Don't you think it could create some problems later down the road if you don't provide the consumers with scientific reasoning as to why our beef is healthy?
So with our advertising and our social media, through every single advertisement, you are going to have join the discussion added to the bottom, and it'll link you to the website and to get you to the initial page that'll give you a rundown of exactly how it is better to go with local beef, and that'll simplify the process of learning. And then if people want to look even more into it or start discussions or debates or arguments, then they can bring that back out to social media. But just generally those ads are going to take you to your website. We didn't specify that, but I'll say right now.
Yeah, I do believe perhaps it wasn't quite, the advertisement begins and it draws people in because of the Canadian Pride, and it uses that platform to discuss this message, and it uses someone they trust to be discussing this message. They're not doubting the facts. It starts with someone they believe, and it starts with, and then he provides the facts and he provides the information to educate. Yes, yes, that's how we gain the involvement, absolutely.
So I I commend you. You were a 2 out of a 3 person, the smallest crowd that we've had. So I commend you for what you've done. I also commend you for your humor that you provided us this afternoon. That's excellent. I noticed that you did not spend much time on how you would measure your success. How will you go about measuring the success of your program?
So we definitely discussed this. We understand that with our alternative that we did put in place, it would be harder to measure because it is the general public that you are going after. We can use our Facebook page and our discussion page as a survey tool, perhaps, in the future, but always doing market research on exactly how people see the beef. And we were provided with a lot of facts initially, and I understand that you'd probably do that in the future just to make sure that people were understanding and if this was for sure working.
If I could just ask a quick question here. I noticed in the decision matrix, this sort of follows what Mohammed was saying there too, that Canadiana appears to be the tool that you're going to use to lead the campaign. But in your examples of, when you say, well, what's that look like? The examples we're talking about the hormones and countering those comments. So it sounded more like the informational is the real silver bullet is to your approach. Now, I think what I just wanted to maybe clarify again is what's the key message and why will the target believe it?
Absolutely. So the message is that Canadian beef is safe, and that while it has hormones, like was provided to us, the information that we realized, it's not a health issue. It's not something to be looked down upon. It's such a minuscule amount that it is a non-issue. And that's really just what needs to be clearly communicated. But for people to listen, instead of a facts and figures approach, we believe it should come from someone they already trust and start with the sense of why they believe in it, because they believe in Canada. And when they see the disconnect between getting beef from another source, when it's the same, our quality is higher and it's investing locally, we really believe that those factors together is going to send the message in a way that is understood and is trusted.